Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Tales from the Post. I'm sitting with a Korean War vet today. As you can tell, I am not in the studio. I've started traveling to make sure I can get these stories. We have a Mr. Fred Evans. He was a corporal in the U.S. Army, Korean War vet. He's going to talk a little bit about that with us today. So thank you for coming, Mr. Evans.
You're welcome.
Let's get started right into, do you have any family history in the military, or what was your motivation for deciding to enlist?
Well, I looked into that a little bit, and as far as I can see, I'm probably a little bit on the odd side because as far as I know, I have no past relatives ever served in the military. I'm the only one that's ever served, as far as I know.
No World War II vets, no World War I vets.
No.
Were you family immigrants that came over here during that time, or?
Well, on my mother's side, yes. My grandparents came over here as children. Now, on my father's side, they've been here. They came here in the 1800s sometime, but still, no, not that I know of. Nobody's ever served in the military.
So, with no family history of serving, what motivated you to enlist?
Well, there was, I think, a number of things. Number one, I was a young teenager during the Second World War. Consequently, watching the newsreels and being subjected to the Second World War, naturally an impressionable teenager. And so when I graduated from high school, there was a recession. I couldn't find a job, so I figured, well, I'm going to be drafted anyhow, so I'll just go in and get my service over with.
That's the best way to do it, because if you're drafted, you don't get to pick your job. At least if you voluntarily enlist, you kind of get a little bit of what you want. You may not get everything, but you kind of pick a little bit your job or what have you. So you voluntarily enlisted.
Yes.
Did you get the job you wanted?
Yes. And probably some people think I'm crazy, but again, I was an 18-year-old kid, right? So when I signed up, they asked you to put down what your choices were. I think they gave you 3 choices. And not that I expected really to get it, but I put down demolition, and I got it.
Like sapper type demolition?
Well, all kinds of demolition stuff, planting mines, setting
Laying
up,
out minefields and
blowing up some, if you need to blow up a bridge or whatever.
you got to play with the serious Play-Doh.
So I said a lot of people think that's crazy, but, I was a kid, so.
That sounds fun. Like now. So what MOS was that? Do you happen to remember the nomenclature?
I don't remember the MOS, to tell you the truth, no.
Would that fall under engineers?
Yes.
So you were an engineer?
Yes.
Um,
I went right from basic training, Fort Dix, New Jersey. I went, I got to leave, and reported to Fort Belvoir, Virginia, which is where I went to school for.
Your AIT. I don't know if either of those are open anymore. Fort Belvoir and Fort Dix.
Dix, I'm sure, is closed. I don't know about Belvoir.
I'll look it up, and I'll have my editor put something up here. So you went to Fort Dix for basic. Your basic was what, 9 weeks, give or take?
It was 12 weeks, I think. Yeah.
12 weeks. And then how long were you training at Fort Belvoir?
Tell you the truth, I don't remember. Probably maybe a month. I don't really recall, tell you the truth.
So after you graduated AIT and you were now officially a soldier, like you have your job and everything, what was your first duty station?
Went to Fort Benning, Georgia.
Yes, home of the infantry. That's where I went to basic at. I was Alpha 247 up on Sand Hill. So what unit were you attached to?
Engineer Battalion.
Engineer Battalion? Do you happen to remember the numbers? No?
No.
Okay. How long were you there like what? How long were you stateside before they were
Well,
like Korea's going on? We're gonna.
my basic, I joined in August of '49. So after my basic was done, then I went to Belvoir, like I say. And I guess by the time I was done all my schooling, I was into the following year. Again, I don't remember the exact dates.
So 19. You said 1949 is
Yeah.
whenever you went in.
So
So
this
about
would be
1950.
1950.
So and the Korean War was what 1951 when it
50,
started.
50.
1950 when it started.
So I went to Fort Benning. Exactly. Again, I don't exactly remember when. Sometime in early 50. And the Korean War broke out in June of 50.
Okay.
So then I got shipped over.
Oh, you're one of the first ones to.
I got over there in August. The war broke out in June. I got there in August.
Wow.
The I got into the 24th Division. Well, let me backtrack. 24th Division was on. What's the word I want there? They were in Japan, occupation duty. Japan was still hadn't signed any.
Yeah, it's. We were coming off of World War II, and
Coming off of World War II,
the
they were
emperors.
still an occupied nation.
Yeah, they're
So
not
we
gonna
had
forgive.
soldiers there on occupation duty. Excuse me. And the 24th Division was the first, when the Korean War broke out and the UN declared war, 24th Division was the first outfit sent in.
Closest.
And they were pretty much decimated. And naturally, when I got there, they were filling it back up, to build the division back up because of all the casualties and everything.
So you ended up getting assigned to the 24th?
24th Division is what I was in, yeah.
All right. So that's had to be a morale killer because you're literally going into a unit that was just destroyed.
Yep.
Were you scared?
I don't know that. At that point, no, I don't think so. Really scared. I was too young to. I was too young to be scared, I guess.
You're invincible.
Anxious, maybe, but when I got there, all we held was a little corner of Korea called the Pusan Perimeter, and after I was there a while, the word came down. MacArthur he was in charge of the whole, The word came down. He said, there will be no evacuation. He says, you stand here and fight.
All right.
You're not going to get evacuated. Fight or die.
That's kind of ironic, though, isn't it? Like Douglas MacArthur, you are going to stay and fight. And I remember there's stories about him where he fled.
Yeah, at the Philippines, but I wouldn't say fled. He was ordered out.
He was ordered out? Okay. I hear conflicting stories. I hear stories of him going to Australia and hiding out in Australia, and you're telling me
he did go to Australia, but see, they wanted him out to build back the forces back up so they could, But
so, how long into the deployment before you were in action? Because it takes time to stand up a unit.
I have to backtrack a little bit. When I got there, I came with a bunch of other soldiers, okay? So they trucked us to this place. It was a big open, it might have been a dry rice paddy, I don't remember, but it was a big open field. So there was this big open field, and they had some folding tables set up. I don't remember how many, with somebody sitting at the chair behind the table. They had us line up. And as I worked my way up, I could start hearing what was being said. And the guy I don't even remember his rank. the wank, but doesn't matter. He was asking MOS, okay? And you get the MOS and cook, infantry, company C, blah, blah, blah. Next guy get up, oh, mechanic, infantry. They're filling all these, regardless of what your MOS was, they were filling up the ranks of the infantry that had been, you know. So I'm thinking, oh my God, you know, this isn't good. So I got up to the thing and he gave me my MOS and he says, oh, okay. He says, see that group over there? And I looked, I said, yeah, there was about 8 guys. And he said, go over there. I said, oh, okay.
You didn't hear infantry, so you're happy.
Nothing. And you know the Army, right? So I go over there and I'm asking, what's going on? They said, we don't know. So pretty soon, along comes a truck. We load on the truck. We end up in this the headquarters company of the 3rd Engineer Battalion, 24th Division, 3rd Engineer Battalion. We find out that we're going to be on tanks.
Oh, you're going to be tankers. You're still kind of blowing stuff up.
Well, the reason these tanks were with the engineers was because they had a dozer blade on the front. And when you went out on a spearhead, they wanted a tank. Usually we were the 3rd one in line. They wanted a tank in case we ran into some kind of a roadblock or something. We could use the blade and
push stuff out of the way,
clear the way. So, but most of us had never been seen within 100 feet of a tank. So what they did was they took us over to a actual tank company and gave some instructions about what to do, and we're very quick.
So you attended a second AIT, a combat AIT, to figure out how to drive tanks.
Right.
So
so then after we got done, we got assigned to tanks, and then when we were ready to go into action then.
And then did you do that the whole deployment? Yeah. Blowing stuff up and pushing shit out of the way?
We went out. You know, there was a lot of deployments, a lot of things going on. It was the tank platoon. We had, I think, 6 tanks, and you know, we'd take turns going out on deployment, and it was, you know, we kept pretty busy.
What tanks were they? Were they the T-60s or the Shermans?
Second World War Sherman tanks.
Sherman tanks.
But at that point, the actual armored divisions or groups had new patent tanks.
Okay, I was thinking. I said T-60. I think I'm an M60. When did the M60 tanks come out? Was that later?
Oh, much later, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably the 80s or 70s when those came out. But so forgive my ignorance, but I haven't interviewed many Korean War vets. I think you're my second Korean War vet that I've interviewed. What was the cause for us going and getting involved in Korea?
Well, the South Korea was divided after the Second World War. Korea had been under Japan's occupation for ages. And after the war, it was divided between the North and the South, the communist North, and we were involved in the South, trying to set up a democracy. Then the North Koreans invaded, and that's when the UN got voted, and we actually were. There was a lot of different countries, different outfits from different countries involved. It was actually a UN.
It's given me a lot of Berlin-style vibes, where the East was communist, the West was capitalist, and then South Korea, North Korea, communist, capitalist, and it's split right down the middle.
Yeah.
So we may have not had any sort of Cold War conflict with Russia in terms of the Berlin Wall, but it seems like we kind of did go through that with Korea.
Well, China was China had been in the Civil War, and the communists won. So China was actually communist, and so was North Korea.
They still are.
Yeah, still are.
So, how long was your deployment?
A year.
A year. Did y'all get R&R or like any sort of vacation leave while you were there?
I got a week's R&R in Japan. Yeah.
Did you have fun there?
Yeah, it was interesting, very interesting. Enjoyed it. Yeah. But yeah, we fought the North Koreans and went all the way to north. Then the Chinese came in. I don't know what you know about the Korean War. But.
Well, no, it's we weren't supposed to be at war with China. We were just supposed to be against the Koreans. Like I know the story of Sergeant Reckless from the Marine Corps, the horse. I know there was 3 outposts there. It was like Vegas. I think one was Reno. They were all like Nevada towns. But besides that, I never had a family member that served in the Korean War. In my family, it's been Somalia. My stepdad was in Korea, but it wasn't during the Korean War. I'm an Iraq War vet. My cousin was Afghanistan. I have another cousin that was in Iraq. My uncle was in the Navy, but I don't know what ship he was on or anything like that, or even his job. I've only spoken to him once. So whenever it comes to the Korean War, like there's a lot of history about World War II. There's also a lot of history about Vietnam. Desert Storm is just because of how quick it was. Like it was a fast war. Iraq and Afghanistan because it was happening for so long. But whenever it came to Korea, Korea is kind of like the odd kid out because it wasn't a long war, right? How long did the war last?
I think we got over in 53. I think 50 to 53.
So about 3
well,
years.
You know, it's called the Forgotten War.
Yeah, and it's maybe because Vietnam was like the first one where they like kind of televised it,
yeah,
stuff like that. So it had a lot of recognition that way. And then also, Korean War was right on the coattails of World War II.
Yeah.
So a lot of people focus on that time frame, World War II.
Exactly. But you know, I've obviously talked to other Korean War veterans, and it's like, you know, they talk about, you know, the situation with Vietnam War. There was a lot of controversy, and soldiers talk about coming home and getting spit on, and you know, and I've had other Korean veterans said, "Geez, I at least like to get spit on, or something to know that we existed, we were there, we, you know."
Well, look at me. I'm 35 years old. I'm a millennial. Your story matters to me, and that's why I'm here to get it. Like I didn't forget about y'all. So hopefully other people will get interested and watch this too. As long as there's a vet, World War II, Vietnam, Korea, Afghanistan, Iraq, second Iraq, Somalia, Bosnia, it doesn't matter if you're a U.S. veteran or even a foreign veteran, like any of our allies. If you're from the UK or the Netherlands, and you have a story to tell, I'll tell it.
Yeah, well, we fought our way all the way up. Well, the Yalu River was the borderline between North Korea and China, and actually, we were on a spearhead all the way up in the northwestern corner of Korea, and it must have been about maybe the third day of that we were on the spearhead, didn't run into a heck of a lot of opposition. So we stopped one night, the third night, I guess. Got up in the morning. Sometimes we took infantry on the back of the tanks, and sometimes we didn't. This time we had infantry. We get up in the morning. We're sitting around. No orders, no nothing. Everybody's wondering what the hell's going on. You know, we're not moving. So this is a funny one. So we're sitting there, you know, and where we were. Of course, there's a lot of mountains in Korea. Where we were, the road kind of ahead of us went around a mountain. So guys are talking and everything, and all of a sudden it gets quiet, you know, and I looked up, and around the corner of the road, around the mountain of the corner, I think, I'm not sure, I think he was Chinese. The soldier had one of those padded uniforms on, had a rifle slung over his shoulder. He's walking with his head down like this. And he must have instinctively felt something. All of a sudden, he looks up, he stops, and he looks. And can you imagine now? He's looking at a bunch of tanks and a bunch of soldiers. And he looks, you know, turns around, he starts to run. Well, some of the soldiers had their weapons handy. They start firing. Even a couple of the tanks opened up, you know, with 50 caliber on the top of the. He got around the corner, not touched. Never touched.
His underwear was dirty. I bet that much.
But we found out later what had happened was the Chinese had come across. That's why the delay there. They were getting orders as what to do. So we turned around, headed back. Our tank got hit with what? We never knew. When it was a hole in the back, something went right into the engine compartment. And our tank was gone.
And you had infantry on the back still?
No, we weren't carrying any. So the other tanks were.
Okay.
We didn't carry any. The other tanks did. And so there we are on our own, trying to get back to our outfit. We ended up hitching rides, whatever we could. And actually, we were gone from our company for about 2 weeks, I guess, before we finally got back. And I didn't find this out until after the war. I got home talking to my mother. And they had these friends, and a couple that my parents had known for ages, and came to visit. And the woman says to my mother, he says, "I'm really sorry to hear about Fred getting killed." Well, you know what this did to my mother, right?
Oh yeah, she melted down.
Now they never had me missing in action, or our tank crew missing in action. Now where she got the idea that I had gotten killed, I don't know. But
did you see your mom soon after that?
No, I never heard the story until I actually got out of the service.
So your mom thought you were dead the whole time?
No. She knew. She knew I was alive once I got back to our outfit and wrote a letter in there.
Okay. Well, you couldn't write letters whenever you were
right. We were freezing our butt off trying to get back to our outfit any way we could. I mean, things were in turmoil because the Chinese were hitting us. I mean, things were chaos, you know. And it was cold. Believe me, it was cold. We didn't get any winter clothing until the latter part of January.
So about halfway through the winter.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it took us, like I say, a couple of weeks almost to get back to our outfit.
Y'all must have been gathering around the exhaust of the tank and just huddling for warmth.
Pardon?
Y'all must have been around the exhaust of the tank and stuff, just huddling for warmth.
I'm not sure I understand.
The exhaust of the tank?
Yeah.
Whenever you are stopped, you are hanging around the exhaust of the tank to keep warm.
Oh, no, not
No,
really.
you just stay in the tank.
Yeah, it's not much choice, really. Um, we got back, of course, we got back, and then we eventually got another tank. So, but
How long after you got your new tank were you back out? Like were you part of the pushing back against the Chinese, or
yeah, then we started fighting the Chinese, yeah, back and forth. And
what was the difference between fighting the Chinese and the Koreans? Was it just better equipment? Was it a numbers issue? Like they just had more numbers?
yeah, the Chinese had outnumbered us by a lot, yes, but that's essentially what they had, and they didn't mind using it up.
So would the U.S. had better equipment?
Yeah, yeah.
So you had a technological advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And then how long did it take for y'all to stop them pushing down and start pushing them back?
Well, I got sent home before. Eventually, they got into a stalemate, and the war essentially came to an end as far as battle went.
They set up the DMZ.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, there's some conflicts going on, but essentially, most of the big battles, there wasn't any big battles or anything.
Did you go through the town where the DMZ's at?
Well, this all happened after I left. I mean, we were still fluctuating back and forth.
Well, no, I mean, whenever you were first going into Northern Korea, did you ever go through that town where they set up the DMZ?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So you
went through the capital of North Korea all the way up. I say we weren't that far from the Yalu River when the Chinese hit us. That story I told you.
You may be one of the last Americans that have been to the capital of North Korea. Because, I mean, besides Dennis Rodman, I can't think of another U.S. citizen that's been in the capital of North Korea. So, when did you come back?
In August.
In August of
50.
51?
No, 50.
50?
No, I'm sorry.
No, you left in the August of 50.
51.
So, how long were you in the Army here stateside before you got out?
That's interesting. Another part of my Army career. When we got, there was an interesting thing. I came back on a troop ship, but I can remember, the one thing I can remember is everybody crowding on the deck going under the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. And it was just amazing to say, hey, we're home, And
kind of like the front door to America.
And actually, of course, there was a lot of troops from the eastern part of this country. So I came back on a train, but it was really nice because they were all Pullman berths, and we went to the dining car for meals, and it was really a nice trip. And
you took that all the way back to Benning?
We went all the way back to Camp Kilmer in New Jersey is where we ended up. But it was funny because once in a while the train would pull off to the siding, like, I don't know, maybe to let other traffic go by. I don't know. But it was funny because the train would come to a stop, and if there was any stores or anything, you'd see about 20 or 30 guys running out trying to find a beer garden, a liquor store.
We need booze. We're thirsty. We've been sober for a year.
But anyhow, of course, I had furlough leave and got assigned to Camp Drum in New York.
Oh, Fort Drum.
It's now Fort Drum. It was Camp Drum then.
It was Camp Drum. So now it's a fort. I think it's still called Drum, but that's where 10th Mountain is.
It's Fort Drum now, yes. It's near Watertown, New York.
That's where 10th Mountain is at.
Yeah. And
So you left cold Korea, and they're like,
yeah, well,
yeah, we're not going to send you to Benning. Yeah, go to Camp Drum and
listen to this part of the story now. Probably about 90% of the guys in Camp Drum at that time were Korean War veterans, right? Froze our butts off over in Korea. And guess what? Comes wintertime, they put us on maneuvers. I think it was the 82nd Airborne, they were going to be the aggressors. They were coming down from Korea, and we were the defenders. Now, this is a Korean War veterans just back from Korea, frozen our butts off. We're out there on winter maneuvers with the snow up. You know how that plays. I mean, they get the snow effects off of the lake.
So which was colder, Korea or New York?
Pardon?
Which was colder, Korea or New York?
Korea was a lot colder.
Oh, Korea was colder.
It was. Well, I found out later that was up till that time. That was the coldest winter they'd ever had in Korea. That winter, but probably since then it's been probably been. But an interesting part of that story is we're getting towards the end of the maneuvers, and they dump me out in the boondocks somewhere. There's this, I guess you would call it, I don't know if you call it a stream or a creek, but it was probably maybe from that chair to the wall. There was
So
a
you're looking at like
little bridge across it.
about what, 20 feet?
There was this little bridge across it. They dumped me off, said, okay, now, if the enemy comes, you're going to simulate blowing this bridge up. Okay. Now I'm standing there, colder than hell. Along comes this pickup truck. Guy stops, says, hi, soldier. He says, pretty cold, huh? And I says, yes, sir, it is. He says, see that building up there? And I look, and I could see this house or place up on a kind of a knoll a little ways away. He says, that's my place up there. He says, how'd you like to go up and get some hot chow? Or need to say chow, hot food. And I says, oh, that sounds good.
Yeah. I'm freezing my ass off.
I was just earning my post, right? Like I really cared. I'm back from Korea, So he goes up, we go up there, drives me up, introduces his wife. I have a hot meal, talking to people, takes me back, drops me off. Pretty soon, they come along, pick me up, never knew the difference. But you can imagine how you talk about a bunch of pissed off soldiers.
All your buddies out there in the cold, and you got taken into a house, enjoy some heat and some warm food.
I mean, coming back from Korea and then winter maneuvers. So then now here's the second part of my story. As I told you, I think yesterday when we were talking, I think I mentioned that somewhere along the way, President Truman, had stuck a year's extension on everybody's enlistment. So by this time in Camp Drum, it's getting to be about May, and I would have been eligible to be discharged in August, right? Well, the extension pushed me over a year, till the following August. So then, on top of everything else, I get orders. I'm going to Iceland.
Oh, well,
serving a year, freezing my butt off in Korea, minor maneuvers in Camp Drum, then sent to Iceland.
Well, at least Iceland's beautiful.
Yeah, it was. And actually, as it turned out, I was there, well, from May till December. And I told you about getting discharged after 4 months. They sent me back in December to get discharged. So actually, I was there mostly in summertime. So it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. And
so your motivation for getting out was,
well,
the cold?
Yeah. My motivation, I think, was I never really thought much about it until maybe you mentioned something yesterday about things that you were going to cover. But it wasn't that I hated the Army or anything. I mean, but I think in my back of my mind was the fact that I wanted to get out, settle down, find a job, get married, raise a family, which wasn't too easy to do if you're going to put 20 years in.
The Army is not very family friendly. It is definitely, if you're a bachelor or a bachelorette, it's definitely more the life for you. You're single. You only have to care about yourself. You can travel. You can do lots of stuff. But stability is not something that the military essentially provides. You have to be able to pack up and leave when you get the orders. You may enjoy one duty station. Doesn't mean you're going to stay there. The military will move you around. So if you're family oriented, yeah, it would make sense that you'd want to get out. But I have really one last question for you, if you don't mind. I'm trying something out where I'm asking all these older veterans, if you could give one piece of advice to this new generation of veterans, like the new soldiers, sailors, cadets, Marines, airmen, what would you pass along to them? And then also, what is a misconception that you hear from the civilian side that you wish would be like clarified?
I don't know. I never really thought about it. I don't know. I guess I'm not much one to give advice, really. I don't know. I wouldn't really.
Stay away from the cold. Pack extra socks, blankets.
I really couldn't say. Really, tell you the truth, I don't really have that.
Like my stepdad, whenever I entered, he told me to keep my head down and don't volunteer for anything.
Yeah, those are obvious things that any ex-soldier would say.
What about any misconception at the civilian side, where it's anything that you hear them talking about tanks? It's like that's not right, or like how some people get irritated whenever they say whenever you shoot a bullet, it goes in somebody and explodes. That causes a lot of vets to go nuts. It's like the bullet doesn't explode. It's just a piece of metal. There's no primer or detonator inside the bullet tip.
Again, I don't know, because I've never been around most people I'm around. I've never talked much about the military. I mean,
Was it because of Vietnam? Was it because of Vietnam and how the Vietnamese Vietnam vets were treated and how
friends or relatives, they might talk about the war a little bit, but they never anything really personal.
No life experience type stuff.
I talk to my family a little bit about my experiences, but I never really was around people that much talked about military life or anything.
Well, that sounds like a good closer. Thank you for coming.
Okay. I was just going to
No, if
finish.
you have something.
I was just going to finish the rest of my story about Iceland.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
Now, you have to realize I'm short, right? But when I went into the service, I was 5'6.5". I've since lost. So 5'6.5" is still below normal height, right? But so
You're a smaller target, harder to hit.
but now when I got to Iceland, there was just uh, some army there to kind of protect. The Air Force was the main base, Air Force base there was the main thing, and they had some army there to supposedly protect the airbase. Well, consequently, there was we didn't have any MPs. And, well, let me backtrack. When I got there, there was not much to do. They were sending us out doing crap jobs, stuff. So finally, a couple of us got, you will go on prison guard duty. Well, they had a Quonset hut set up. The front, a little portion of the front was partitioned off, and the back was where the prisoners were. These were soldiers, maybe a dozen or so. I don't remember exactly how many. And so somebody had to be there at night. There was a desk there in the front. You're on duty there. And in the daytime, we chased prisoners. Well, now, how silly is this? We're walking around with a carbine with work details for these prisoners. Where are they going to go? We're in Iceland. Where the hell are these guys going to go?
They said the same thing about Alcatraz, and they swam off the island.
Yeah, well, made a long swim from.
Yeah.
So, but anyhow, I guess I was on night duty one night, and so I came back, went to bed. Now, of course, this pissed off the first sergeant that I'm the only one in the Quonset hut sleeping. Everybody else is. So he comes in this one day. Evans, get up, huh? You got to report to AP Air Police. You got to report to AP headquarters. What? What's going on? I don't know. Just get your butt over there. Okay. I'm trying. All the time I'm throwing clothes on them. What the hell did I do? I go over there. Go in and report. Was a first lieutenant sitting there behind the desk. Corporal Evans, he's got these papers. Corporal Evans, he says, I see you have a pretty good record. He says, I'll tell you what. He said, as you may know, he said, there's no MPs. He said, and we would like to have some representation. We'd like to make some MPs to work along with our air police because of the soldiers having no military police. He says, and I think you would be a good candidate. I said, well, sir, I don't think I couldn't even get it out. He said, and you will report Monday at 0800 here. I said, yes, sir. And off I went.
So
I come back. Turns out they were only putting us what they call Class A posts. Like they had pickup trucks, roving patrol with a pickup truck, duty at the main terminal and at the main gate. So it wasn't bad duty, really. It's this one time I'm on patrol with this. We always had an AP with us, with the MPs, and I was on patrol, so he gets the AP guy gets a call on the radio. There's a brawl going on in one of the army barracks. So we drive up, and he says, "Okay, let's go." I says, "Go ahead." He says, "What?" He says, "Come on." I says, "I ain't going in there." I says, "They don't pay me enough to go in there."
Let them fight it out. They'll tire themselves out, then we can come in.
So he goes in, comes back. I says, "Well, it's all calmed down now, anyhow."
So you went from engineer to tanker to
prison guard
to MP.
That is an interesting career.
And that's all in about, what, 4 years now?
Three years. 3 years and a little bit.
Yeah, like 3 years and, I don't know, a few months, yeah. Well, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed listening to it.
One time I was on duty at the gatehouse at the main gate. And of course I had we carried a .45 pistol in the tank.
The 1911?
And it was supposedly our weapon. And I probably, if that was a man there, I'd probably have a hell of a time hitting him with it. Great weapon. So anyhow, I had a .45 as a MP, carried a .45. So I'm on duty, and of course it was our job to check vehicles in and out. So this Jeep comes driving up, and there was an officer with a woman in the Jeep. He stops, and the MP was busy doing something, paperwork or something. So I went out to check So I go out, and just as I went out there to check him, he takes off. Zoom! I said, "Son of a gun!" I'm trying to get my pistol out of my. I couldn't even get the damn thing out of. By that time, he was long gone. Of course, I couldn't have hit him anyhow, probably. Well, it turns out he had stuck this girl into the base and took the Jeep. Wasn't even authorized to have the Jeep or the girl in the.
All right, then. Well, I don't know what to say.
Right near the end of our basic training, they always took the group that was getting ready to leave and put them on prison guard at the base. So they gave me a carbine and put me up on one of the towers. Now they had a fence, a wire fence with a barbed wire on top. But like probably about from me to your stand there was just a wire, just a single wire with stakes. And the prisoners weren't supposed to cross that wire. And they told us, if any prisoner goes across that wire and goes towards that fence, you shoot. And if that prisoner escapes, you're going to serve the term. So I hadn't been up there too long, and about 3 of the prisoners came walking up, and they're talking. I couldn't hear them. They're talking. They're looking up at me, and I'm just looking down at them. And one prisoner, he walks up, and he puts one leg up just over the wire. So I didn't say a word. I just took my carbine and took the safety off, and went like this, and he just laughed and put his leg back, and the three of them walked off. They knew, they were just
They're screwing with you.
screwing around. Yeah, they knew that we were all rookies. Just
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We're gonna wrap this up. Once again, this has been Mr. Fred Evans, Corporal, U.S. Army, Korean War vet, 93 years old, still lively as ever. I hope you enjoyed his story. This has been Shaggy from Tales from the Post. I hope you all enjoy, subscribe, and look forward to seeing you in the next episode.